All right, guys, welcome back into another episode of the Show Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Andrew Parker, and this is brought to you by Beyond the Monster. Today's episode, I actually have Tampa Bay Rays pitching prospect Hayden Snelsire on, and Hayden just won the High A Pitcher of the Week for the first week of action there when he had a nice scoreless outing to start the year down in Bowling Green, down in High A for the Tampa Bay Rays. But before I kind of dive into the interview and go any further, please like, subscribe, whatever if you're watching me on YouTube right now, listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it is, wherever you get your podcast, please hit that 5-star rating, subscribe, do whatever. Helps us out a ton and helps us kind of keep going throughout the year. But yeah, without further ado, though, I will shoot you right on to our interview with Hayden Snelsire. All right, I am joined by Tampa Bay Rays prospect Hayden Snelsire. Hayden, obviously you're fresh off of winning Player of the Week last week for your opening outing, actually down in High A. So I kind of wanted to start there. How was that? Just obviously having a great first outing for you. How important was that to kind of get started on the right note like that?
Yeah, definitely good start to the year for sure. Wasn't really expecting to get any awards from the outing. I thought I pitched really well, but with awards, it's usually like you need to have a couple outings in a week or something like that. But just so happened, I guess, from the short week of opening weekend, it kind of worked out in my favor. But yeah, it was great start to the year. Have a lot to build off from that, so that was good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was just one outing, but every other person that won that award had the same amount of time to win that award that you did. So, I guess like obviously you've had 2 outings now. You just pitched on Thursday, and how was that for you to obviously like to get you're fresh to High A and you wanted to get off to as good of a start as you can. You do that, does that give you confidence going forward? You're just like, okay, like I can hang at this level. Like I know that I can get these guys out. Like what does that do for your confidence?
Yeah, definitely. You don't really know what to expect until you do it. So it was really good to see that I was able to have some success early. And last night I didn't have as much success, but that's baseball. Sometimes you have your ups and downs in the season. But yeah, it was good to see that I can pitch at this level.
And so I want to talk about your offseason a little bit. Obviously, that led you up to this moment of, winning the Player of the Week. But what did you do over the offseason? Like, what did you treat your offseason as? Were you working on certain things? Was it like heavy on velocity, strength training? Like, what did you do?
Yeah, so I'll start with like the beginning of the off season. I had to get a surgery that was non-baseball related, but that took me out for about 2.5 months, 2 months of my beginning of the off season. So that was different for me. I've never had to do that. I've never had to take that much time away from doing like any activity. Like I was kind of just out for about 2 months. So from there, it was just really about building my body back up to where I was able to go out and perform and where I get my body to where I was last year. So I think I had really focused on kind of gaining some weight because I'd lost some from the surgery and then like strength. So I would say strength is probably the biggest thing for me, just getting back and then obviously getting my arm ready for the season because I was a little behind from taking that time off.
Was that hard for you at all? Obviously, once you get down to spring training and all the guys are reporting, and you like you said, you were a little behind because you had to take off 2 months. Like, was that hard to? Was it kind of like hard for you mentally and even physically to be like, okay, I see all these other guys that I'm here with, and they're all up here, and I might not be hitting those velocities or whatever it is. So, like, how was that? I guess once you got to spring.
Once I got to spring, I was almost 100, like ready to go, like 100%. Arm was feeling really good. Velo kind of gradually throughout the spring, I think just from being in the warm weather, honestly, because I was up in the cold, kind of gradually got better as the spring went on. But yeah, I think it wasn't too much of like they were ahead of me at that point. It was more during like those early months in the off season where I had to kind of ramp up a little quicker than I was used to.
So you're on the newer side of professional baseball, obviously being drafted in 2023. And, I know last year you were down in low A for most of the year. And then, this year you started off in high A. Has your experience in affiliate ball been everything you kind of imagined it would be? Or what are some things, I guess, that you've run into, like whether it's the schedule or anything like that? Like, what are you kind of noticing about professional baseball?
Yeah, I would say that it's been awesome. Like I don't have many complaints, if at all. Just from my experience so far, like it's been pretty cool just to be able to pitch in these, especially in when I was in Charleston last year. Like those crowds there are unbelievable. So just being able to pitch in those atmospheres and pitching against like really good talent and prospects from other teams, like it's been awesome. So I would say yeah, it's been kind of everything I would dream it would be. I mean, travel is honestly not too bad from what I've heard from back in some older guys back in the day when there was not this like when we didn't have the union where it was the travel was kind of crazy and you didn't have these scheduled off day every week. So yeah, I can't have too many complaints.
Yeah, I've grown to love the Monday off days. Just kind of even for a guy on my side that's covering teams and writing about them and things like that, and going to games throughout the week. It's the Monday's a good reset day, and I can only imagine for you guys actually playing it. I'm sure that I know a lot of guys obviously go out and golf and do all that. What do you like to do on your off day?
Yeah, usually if I can, I'm gonna go golf. Yeah, that's one of my favorite hobbies to do outside of baseball. So um, yeah, golfing is definitely one. If we're like in Charleston, if there's a beach, I would go there sometimes, but usually it was golfing.
Yeah, I feel like Charleston is also a great golf spot. By the way, I feel
Yeah,
like you
yeah,
got very
we got
lucky with that.
spoiled. We got spoiled for sure for being that. That was our first spot to be. So I definitely didn't take it for granted because everyone had told me to not take it for granted. So that was fun.
So now you're in a town that I've been to Charleston before, but I've never been to Bowling Green. What is that like? I know that you've only been there for a short amount of time, but what has that been like? I guess just being in the city, just being around some of the fans there, just like what is the atmosphere like there?
Yeah, it's good. I would say it's early, so it's hard to really tell. And then the weather hasn't been cooperating with us. This first couple weeks, like we've had some tornado warnings and cold weather and rain, so it's been a little brutal with the weather. But I'm excited to kind of see the town. I haven't really done too much exploring into the city or like outside the city, because we were away, obviously our first trip, and then this week it's the weather's kind of been I haven't been really wanting to like go outside. So excited. The fans have been awesome. Last night we had a good crowd there. Just got a little rowdy, so that was fun.
Yeah, I was about to ask you about the weather aspect too, because I've been to my fair share of games up in Buffalo and Syracuse, and a lot of those AAA stops that are up in upstate New York that are getting snow on the opening week. And one day when you're in Durham, you're gonna have to travel up there, probably in the 30-degree weather. How like I guess for fans that aren't too familiar with I guess just how much cold weather affects pitchers just with being able to grip the ball or whatever it is. Like, how big of a factor do you think that is early in the year?
It's definitely a factor. I know, like for me personally, it's just you. It takes longer for like my body to warm up and then be ready to go pitch in a game. So like if it's cold, it's just an extra 30 minutes of kind of just moving your body around, making sure throughout the game as a reliever, you just always being staying warm. You're never kind of sitting for too long. Whereas in warm weather, you can kind of hang out for a little bit just because your body's naturally warmer.
Yeah, it is very interesting to me that you obviously see it at the major league level as well. Obviously, there's a ton of teams up in the colder markets, and you're seeing these games being played at 35 degrees, 30 40 degrees in Boston, New York, and all those teams that don't have domes, and it's like it shows, man. It shows. Some of those pitchers are struggling with command, and it's just like, well, this game in 2 months, like that guy's not going to be struggling with this command. So I always like to point that out because I feel like a lot of fans are like, well, that guy's struggling right now. Well, there's a reason. But all right, I got a couple more baseball questions left here before I let you slide. So I was kind of looking at it. You were a 17th round pick. You went to a smaller school, and you're not like a top ranked prospect in the Rays system. Do you hold like a chip on your shoulder while you play, or like what's your what's your perspective towards that? Like, are you just like, hey, like I've had to kind of claw and fight for everything I've got, so I'm going to hold that with me? Is that kind of how you feel?
Yeah, I would say it's not so much as like a chip on my shoulder, as like I have to prove anything. It's more of just like that's what kind of motivates me to keep going. It's like being from a small D3 school, like odds were already against me. So being able to prove that them wrong, or like prove them, not really anyone wrong, but like prove the odds wrong, like I can make it. That's kind of already happened. So now it's more of just being who I am, keep going, like getting better every day, and kind of just making sure I stay like humble in my process, as far as like I came from this small group, or this small little college, to now where I am. So more of like a humbling thing. I don't really hold it as like I need to prove something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think something as well that goes with that is, the Rays have a fantastic farm system. I feel like they have talent at every single level. And you were just around all of them in spring training. Does that give you a little extra motivation, just kind of seeing a lot of the guys, around camp? And, obviously they have one of the better ranked systems in baseball. So does that kind of give you an extra nudge to be like, hey, like I gotta get going because there's a lot of talent in the system right now?
Yeah, I mean, definitely when you're having to throw your live ABs and inter squad games against them, it's like everyone is good. Like it's very hard to like, you don't get any easy at bats, especially in early, when you're trying to just kind of figure out, get touch the mound again with batters and stuff. So yeah, that part was it's an awakening. Like you're in it. Like you have to be ready to go at all times when you're facing hitters here, just because they're so good and we have so many prospects.
So I did just peek back at your college numbers and everything, and you were primarily a starter when you were in college, and then when you turned pro, I think you've only started just like a handful of games, may have been openers or whatever it was, but you're primarily out of the bullpen. Was that something that took some time to adjust to? Was it just being that starter and having that routine in college, and just that's what you were used to? Then when you go to pro ball, it's like you could pitch 3 times a week, and you got to get used to that. Was that something that kind of took a little time to get adapted to?
Yeah, definitely. And in college, it was almost like I didn't have to think. My routine was so like easy for me. Just every day, it was something like knew what I was doing every day. So now as a reliever, it's kind of I've had to switch a little bit of my mind frame, just so that I'm ready to go multiple times during a week. Um, so that was a big adjustment, especially early in the year last year, of just like knowing when I need to start doing my prep work, and then when I need to start throwing, and how many pitches I need to throw before I go out in an outing and stuff like that. So definitely an adjustment. I think I'm starting to get a good routine in the second year. So hopefully we can kind of build off that.
What I know that you got so used to the starter and everything, it might not have been difficult for you by a certain point. But which do you think is more difficult? Do you think pitching out of the bullpen is more difficult just because it could be more sporadic? You could be used a few times in a week, or do you think the starting routine, because you only got maybe one start a week and you got to nail it?
Yeah, I've thought about this just because I've done both. I think they both have their own, like it's almost like they're two different positions, honestly. Like it's a pitcher, but like as a starter, your job is to go as long as possible and to face a lineup over more than once, sometimes even 3 times. So I think that in itself is really hard. Like pitching for that long against the same guys is really hard, because they've seen your stuff multiple times now and they know what you throw. um, but then as a reliever, it's like you have way higher stress innings. Like later in the games, ball games are closer usually, and then also you're only going 1 or 2 innings, so that also is harder just because if you can't mess up in those 1 or 2 innings. But I think they both have their difficulties. I would say starting I think is a little harder, but they both are very hard.
Yeah, because I was kind of thinking that when I asked, and I'm just like, well, you have your routine as a starter, like you said, you get so used to it, but then it's like you only have probably one shot a week to like really do it. And if you have like a bad outing that week, it's like you got to wait five plus days until your next one to kind of
Yeah.
bounce back. So I don't know what I would have picked either. So I'm glad you kind of mentioned that it's kind of like two different whole ball games there. All right, I got two questions left, and I'm going to let you slide here. I guess I'll start with this one actually. Obviously you've been a member of the Rays organization now for 2 years now since you were drafted in 2023. What have you noticed about the Rays pitching development? And they're kind of known as that team that constantly finds these arms out of nowhere, and they end up being very, very good. And usually the Rays are always very consistently good and in the playoffs over the last decade. So what have you thought about working with their pitching development and I guess their staff?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that they let you be you. They don't really try and change too much. Like that's one of the big things is like you're here for a reason, so don't change just because you're having like some failures or you're not having as much success as you want. So that's a big one. And then it's just the like individuals like catering work that you get from our pitching coordinators and stuff like that is has been awesome. So like if I have any questions about what I need to do with a certain grip or whatever it is, they're always um, ready to answer or ready to help me in any way that they can.
All right. Well, I got one question left for you before I let you slide. You're a couple outings into your 2025 season now, and obviously you won an award for your first outing, so I feel like you're off to a pretty good start. But for yourself, I guess if we fast forward to the end of 2025, what would you say, in your opinion, would be a successful season for you? Like, do you want to reach like a certain like innings pitch number? Do you want to reach a certain like? Is there anything, I guess, statistical wise that calculates a good season, or what would you consider yourself to having a good year?
Yeah, I try to stay away from the statistical numbers as being like a benchmark for me, just because anything can happen during a season. Like you may pitch well in an outing, but the numbers might not say well. So for me, it's more of just did I get better? Like, am I getting better every day? Did I, if I had some, like, if I didn't have so much success in this outing, what did I do the next outing? How did I respond? So I think it's more of just like a internal, like metric for me is just, am I getting better? Like, I'm not staying stagnant. I'm not trying to stay where I am because I know that I need to get better to move up. So yeah, I think that's kind of the biggest thing for me is how much better am I getting throughout the year.
All right, Hayden. Well, thank you so much for doing this, and obviously we'll be looking out for you for the rest of the year. But thank you so much.
I appreciate it.